Hello, Acceleration Nation, and welcome to another Sick Career Podcast, the podcast for ambitious professionals who want to take ownership of their career. I'm Alan Stein. I am the founder, the CEO, and Chief Accelerator of Kadima Careers. And on today's podcast, I'm doing another trip report. This one after I returned from the Grace Hopper celebration. This celebration is from the organization AnitaB.org. It's a great organization that supports women and non-binary technologists. It's, I think, the biggest women and non-binary tech organization in the world. And at this celebration that was in Florida, there were, I believe, 15,000 women, mostly women, by the way, and there were some men that joined there. And I will show you some pictures of this event. Some of you listening to this on the podcast will have to see in the show notes where we put the picture show of my trip to Grace Hopper, but I will also take you through some of my findings and key recommendations I have for you when you go to a conference. Live conferences are great opportunities for you to meet people, learn a lot of information. I like to be efficient. When I go to these conferences, I spent a lot of money to go here. There were some tickets that were given away for free, but I think I spent about $1,200 plus the cost of airfare and hotel to get down to Orlando. So the first picture here is me and this guy, Ian Vedis, I believe his name was. He had a hat that said, Jesus is his boss. He was my Uber driver from the airport. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he's a big fan of his boss. I have not had a boss as well regarded, perhaps, as Jesus in my career. I've had 38 bosses, but none that I would say Lord like. A picture that I'm showing here is the mob scene that was the floor of Grace Hopper conference. So what happens at conferences like this, there are lots of diverse, talented people, in this case, women, that came down to this conference. And there are a lot of companies that pay big sponsorship money to get on the floor, to set up their booth, to give away swag for people that want to apply to work at those companies. And it's really the most inefficient and ineffective method to get a job. There are these companies that have huge lines. Some of them are hiring on the spot, which I don't even know how you hire on the spot, how you get interviewed on a floor, which is super noisy and super cumbersome. There are a few companies that hire on the spot, usually not the most attractive companies. I think Barclays Bank was doing that. But Google was there, TikTok was there, Apple was there. I don't believe any of them were hiring on the spot. They were collecting resumes, but there's other ways to get resumes in rather than wait on a 2-hour line in some cases to hand your resume in, shake the hand of a recruiter, get your resume put in with a big list of competitive people and likely not get a response. But anyway, the conference, there's a big floor with lots of booths, lots of swag given away, all these companies that are giving money to great organization like AnitaB, which I fully encourage them to do to offset a lot of the prices of the tickets for the women coming here. And here's a list of some of the leaders of the top companies for women technologists. So if you are a woman, if you are looking for jobs, some of these companies probably are more women friendly. I'll just read them off the list of some of the leaders: ADP, Capital One, Dev Tech Group, Discover Financial Services, Eli Lilly and Company, Experian, InterSystems, Kohl's, Point Click Care, PwC, Slalom Consulting, Target, Thomson Reuters, and UKG, which I think is Ultimate Kronos Group. So those are some of the companies that gave AnitaB a lot of money. They're committed to diversity efforts, so they're good companies to potentially consider. But just because companies are not at the trade show does not mean that it should not be on your target list. Here's a picture of a ridiculous line for people waiting to apply for a job at Ford. And yes, the same Ford company that the median compensation is about $60,000. Yeah, they're doing some cool stuff with their self-driving cars and their EVs, but it's Ford. So I was just flummoxed by how much people were just waiting on every line to give a resume into every company. Here's another line for Goldman Sachs. Good company. It's worth applying to. But at the conference, you're just waiting online to drop your resume. you can do that online. Or the better way is you can earn a referral. Here's a picture that I will quote Grace Hopper, and she is the woman that this conference was named after. It's called the Grace Hopper Celebration. And Grace Hopper, I unfortunately actually don't know the full history of her. I think she was in the US military. And her quote that they showed on this board on the opening speech was, "The most dangerous phrase in the language is 'we've always done it this way.'" And I think that's a good reminder that these companies that are really underrepresented with women talent are finally, hopefully, getting a little spark of openness and willingness to hire more women. I don't think that there's been deliberate discrimination. That's just my opinion. There's just lots of systemic biases in the process that lead to a lack of women applicants. And if there's less women applicants, there's going to be less women hired for these roles. And while I was at Grace Hopper, I actually I asked ChatGPT, what is the percentage of women representation at the FANG companies, or the companies formerly known as FANG, on the tech side? So not sales, not operations, not HR, but on the tech side, which Anita B is really designed for. And despite the woman population being about 50% globally, Facebook only has 26% of its technologists that are women. Amazon's at 28%. Apple is at 25%. Netflix is at 23%, and Google's at 28%. So just because these companies have been underrepresented, and by the way, all those numbers have been going up over the years, kudos to the companies for making some headway there, but it is way behind what the normal representation should be of 50%. So that's a picture of Grace Hopper at the opening of the event. Here's a picture of the big opening stage of the event. It was a very inspiring speaker, the woman CEO of Grace Hopper. She was inspiring there. Also, before the CEO came on stage, there was actually a very interesting preamble from, I don't know what his title is, but his name is Cullen White. Good guy. I've spoken to him before from AnitaB.org. And he had a very direct appeal to the people in the audience that there were a significantly higher number of men attending the conference here that were taking spots and opportunities up for the women that were down there to get jobs. So it was an impassioned plea for the men really that were welcome to come, but not really encouraged to come to this conference, to stop taking the jobs from the women. Because these companies, whether it's Ford, whether it's Goldman Sachs, whether it's Google, whether it's Amazon, whichever companies that had booths at the floor at the trade show would hire anybody. They were hoping to get women. That's why they're at that conference. But if a man comes, if someone with privilege and opportunity comes and applies, they will hire anybody. But this conference was designed really to support ambitious women technologists, women and non-binary technologists. So he made a pretty impassioned plea to step back, guys, and let room for women to get in the door at these opportunities. The truth of the matter is, if the company stopped or did not accept those applications, that would probably cut people off from even attending the conference and applying for those jobs. But the companies are going to take the applications. So people are going to come apply that are looking for different ways to get their foot in the door. That was the opening talk at the Anita B conference. They congratulated some companies that were very supportive of women in tech. It was ADP and Kohl's and DevTech. And I'm sure those are all companies that spend a lot of money with Anita B, which is great. This is me taking a picture at the Salesforce booth, and to Salesforce's credit, I always found that to be a very welcoming organization to women. I was part of the Salesforce Women Network, SWN, but they were there and they were quite popular at the booth at Anita B. Here is ridiculous packed lobby of this event. There were so many women at this event. And by the way, this event was in Orlando, Florida, and I think it's been in Florida for many years in the past. This is going to be the last time they are holding it in Orlando because of a lot of the non-cool rules that have been passed in Florida that are limiting women's ability to manage and control their body and their decisions. So next year, this conference is going to be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'll be curious to see how that is handled because the Orlando Conference Center is huge. It's ridiculous. It can really handle a conference like this. I don't know how Philadelphia is going to do it. I was just there for National Black MBA, but I'll be there in Philadelphia for Anita B next, I think it's October. So if anyone's going, encourage you to come and say hi to me. Picture. Here is a picture of supposedly women technologists that are waiting online for the door to open for the trade show. And if you can look there, you see a lot of guys standing there. Those guys are trying to take the jobs and the places of the women that are lining up there. So not only is that not cool, but you also see how deep these lines are of people getting in line to get in the door. And again, getting in line to put your resume in, scan a QR code or whatever is not the best way to get a job. The better way is really to build relationships at these events. This is a fantastic story. Kate Howells, she was a former Googler. You can check out on my LinkedIn post. Kate was notified that she was laid off of Google while she was in the hospital a day after she gave birth to her, I believe, son. And she posted something on LinkedIn, a picture of her and her husband and her newborn, and saying how tough it was to hear the story while she was not while she was giving birth, but right after, while she was in the labor room, of being told that she was one of the 12,000 people that Google decided to lay off in January of this year. And it's a reminder that everybody is employed at will, and also a reminder that companies do a really shitty job of communicating that. So this woman was on maternity leave, and she found out about her displacement, her being laid off, through lots of friends that reached out to her. And then she had to find out through email that she was also part of the Google layoff, even though she was on giving birth at the time. So really terrible story. But the silver lining is Kate posted something on LinkedIn and had a ridiculous amount of people look at it on LinkedIn, which is unusual, but she had a really good post. It was a very touching story. She got about 2 million impressions, which is really high for reference. Some of my best posts get about 150,000 views, I think is the highest I've ever gotten. So she got about 2 million views on this post about this tearjerker of a story. And it opened up lots of opportunity for her, lots of connections. And it resulted in her getting this opportunity to become the VP of marketing at AnitaB.org. Great organization, an organization that Google, her former employer, is a big sponsor of. And so it was a great story how it ended for Kate. I don't generally recommend posting something on LinkedIn to get you a great job. It does happen in some situations, like this case where she got 2 million impressions. But often when you post something on LinkedIn, you'll get 500 or 1,000 impressions. Here was Apple. Apple was packed the whole time. They had a big presence there. And then I was able to crash an Amazon party. So Amazon did a good job of identifying women technologists in the Orlando area. They invited a bunch of them to a party that they were hosting. And I was invited in with a current client of mine, this woman, Rebecca. I was her plus one. So she invited me in. She was reached out to by Amazon because she's in the Orlando area, because she works in tech, because she's an ambitious, a successful woman. They found her on LinkedIn. They invited her to this event, and they said, "Hey, Rebecca, you and the other people coming here get a plus one." And I was fortunate enough that Rebecca extended her plus one to me. So I was able to crash the Amazon party, which was fun. It was good food, good drink. It was at this nice place called the Ice Bar. Lots of people networking there. That was my trip there. To wrap up here, it was a great conference for me. My highlights actually were I did these things called brain dates. If you've ever heard of brain dates, they're events at some conferences. We used to have this at Tableau conference, where you match someone that has information to share with someone that is seeking information. So I just set up shop and spoke about how to get into Google and Facebook and Salesforce and Amazon. And I just set up shop with these brain dates, and plenty of ambitious and talented women and a couple of men came to join me at a table, and I just gave them some advice, gave them some feedback on their LinkedIn profiles, and helped with their career. But those are the sort of things, those relationships that you build at those conferences are so much more valuable than going to the booth. If you do go to the booth and you do drop your resume, better than that, try to find a name of somebody. Try to find someone at the company and then connect with them on LinkedIn. And then ideally try to have a conversation sometime after the event, because this event was chaotic. Not chaotic, it was actually very well organized, but it was so crowded with ambitious, talented women, and you want to stand out from the crowd. The way you do that is through conversation, is through building relationship, is through one-on-one conversation. So maybe a coffee or a tea at the event, or if you can't do it there at the event, connect on LinkedIn, follow up, have a conversation, build those relationships, especially at those organizations where you want a job at. That's my wrap up of my trip report down to Orlando, Florida with AnitaB.org for the Grace Hopper celebration. Highly recommended as a conference for people, but there's ways to make it more efficient and more effective for you if you're trying to network, if you're trying to build relationships, and you're trying to get a better job. With that, we end another episode of the Sick Career Podcast. If I can ever help you with your career, there's 3 primary ways Academic Careers helps you. 1, we provide personalized coaching where we work with a small number of clients each month. You get a dedicated expert coach, and we work with you for a year or until you get a better job, whichever lasts longer. So we're there with you at least for a year to help get you that job and succeed at that job. If you don't need as much direct support, you want to do something in a group, we do offer group coaching as well. So you can check out our group coaching. And if you're more of a do-it-yourselfer, you just need some guidance and some videos and you can follow the steps, check out our digital course. It is more affordable and you can follow all our steps and get more interviews, get more offers, and make more money. If you want to check out our solutions, go to academiccareers.com/solutions. And finally, if you like this episode of the Sick Career Podcast, please rate and review and share it with your friends. We really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. We're trying to accelerate 1 million careers, and we can't do that without your help. So thanks a lot. The last 3 words I have for you are own your career.